So I was just sent the Insta360 X5, and normally I wait to do a full review to share my thoughts, but this time I thought I would do just my initial impressions of the X5. And to do that, I thought what better way than to go out with my electric skateboard and film the entire thing using the X5. I'm not using any external microphones, so you can get an idea of what the actual footage from this camera looks like. And overall, I've genuinely been really impressed so far. Let's get into it so I can share more thoughts. Okay, so let's talk about my initial impressions of the X5, and overall they've been really positive, like I mentioned. And to be completely honest, I think I was expecting the X5 to be a bit of an S upgrade from the X4 in the same way that I thought the Ace Pro 2 was a bit of an S upgrade to the Ace Pro. So I think my expectations were kind of low with the X5. I thought maybe it would just be a bit of a spec bump, better image quality, especially when you consider the fact that the design doesn't look that different to the X4. However, when I first unboxed the X5, there were a few things that I noticed straight away. First, I actually really like the new design. Even though it's not that different, it feels quite thoughtful, especially things like where they've put the charging port is different, which just feels more thoughtful. It feels like they've taken into consideration user feedback. And then of course the most obvious feature upgrade, which is the replaceable lenses. And I definitely think this is a huge thing. I thought maybe this was a bit overhyped because you already had the lens guards on the X4, but I think the fact that you don't have to carry around an extra piece of gear with you all the time now just gives you that extra peace of mind. Next was obviously the image quality. I was very keen to see how this looked compared to the X4, and I've done some limited tests so far, but overall I've been really quite impressed. It does feel like quite a significant upgrade. And then lastly, there's some changes with the UI that I really like. So overall, the menu system has been overhauled and it feels even more intuitive to use than it did before. And then there's also a new mode that actually I'm a big fan of called the InstaFrame mode. And basically this auto tracks you so that you don't have to do manual tracking later in the app or on your desktop computer. So I think that has a lot of potential to be really useful, especially if you're just wanting to film really quickly, because that was one of the downsides to the 360 mode, was the fact that there was more effort involved in editing and post. So overall so far I'm really impressed. Let's keep going, and I want to talk about who this camera might be good for next. Okay, so I wanted to film the entire video out while I was skating, but there ended up being no really quiet locations where I was. So I decided to just come home and finish the video in my office, but I'm still filming on the X5. I'm using the X5 microphones, and I'll just keep overlaying the footage from the skate while I talk. So who is the X5 for? Honestly, I think now it's gotten to the point where this is pretty much the ideal action camera for everyone. I've always said about these 360 cameras, if you don't want to have to think about filming while you're in the moment, then a 360 camera is the way to go. The big downside has always been that you have to manually reframe, but with all the AI features and this new InstaFrame mode, a lot of that is really not a big problem anymore. Now for me, in terms of the standout features so far, I've already mentioned the InstaFrame mode. I think it's great. I've also been really impressed with the wind noise removal on the X5. It's actually really impressive. They've redesigned the microphone with a better wind guard, and you can really tell the difference. Like, I've been blown away. I've even done some early comparisons to the X4 and it's leagues ahead. Like I already said, the image quality has improved as well. I genuinely think it's looking so good. Every time I go to export footage from the X5 on my computer, I end up getting distracted by just looking around at how good everything looks. And for me, as someone who really prioritizes image quality, that is saying a lot. And I'm sure it has to do with the AI chips on board the X5. The battery life has been really solid so far, plus the quick charge has been really nice. Before I went out for this skate, my battery was on about 25% and I was able to charge it to almost full in about 45 minutes, which is incredible. In terms of downsides so far, any problems I've had, honestly, I would tell you if I had any problems with this camera. So far, I haven't found any major issues. Like I said at the start, I actually genuinely expected the X5 to be overhyped, but so far, I think overall it's really living up to the expectations. And I'm not being sponsored by Insta360 or anything like that. This is just honestly what I think. I will definitely let you know in the full review if I have found any downsides to this camera, which leads me to what I'm still hoping to test for the extended review, and that is more night footage. So obviously the X5, one of the big features is the low light ability. And again, my early tests have shown that it is really good, but I really want to do some more direct comparisons with the X4. And I've also been testing out the Insta360 Plus cloud storage. So I've got some thoughts on that. But my early verdict on this camera so far, but if you own an X3, I 100% recommend getting the X5. It's definitely a huge step up from the X3. If you currently have the X4, is it worth upgrading? I'm still testing this out, so I'll have a definite verdict on this with the full review. But so far, I'm leaning towards yes. I think it probably is worth the upgrade. But again, let me know in the comments what you want to see tested between the two cameras. I hope to have the full review out in a few weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already so you don't miss it. And in the meantime, I've got a whole bunch of other Insta360 camera videos, so feel free to check them out on my channel.